Good afternoon. At this time, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll begin with roll call. Start with Mr. Gilbert Guadiana. Myself, I'm here. Ms. Gabby Begay?
Here.
Ms. Angelina Harden?
Here.
And Mr. Dave Wilgis. Okay, if you guys can assist me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of Mexico, and the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you. And good evening. We'll be at item D now. Welcome everyone that's here. We are pleased to have our two superintendent finalist candidates joining us via Zoom. I want to state that we did conduct thorough reference checks and verified licensures for all candidates and advanced the two finalists we believe are the most qualified to meet the district's needs. We sincerely thank each of them for their time, interest, and commitment to this process. We would also like to thank our community members and stakeholders for being part of this important selection process. Your engagement and support are greatly appreciated as we work to identify the next leader of our district. We are grateful to our finalists for their participation and look forward to learning more from them this evening. We'll move to number 2, the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt the agenda.
I have a motion
I second.
and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now we'll move to number 3, the Superintendent Search Public Forum. At this time, our Vice President, Ms. Gabby Begay, will be serving as our MC for the night, or for the evening. I want to thank her for stepping up and doing this. So at this time, it's all yours, Ms. Begay.
All right. Thank you. So we will now move into the finalist candidate forum. Each activity is timed, and each finalist will be given equal time. Finalists will be invited to speak on a rotating basis, starting with Dr. Guterres and then followed by Dr. Spaniel. We will begin with finalist introductions. Each finalist will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves. There will be a 5-minute timer, candidates, in the upper right-hand corner of your screen that will show you the time. So the first finalist to introduce themselves will be Dr. Guterres. Whenever you're ready, you will have 5 minutes, Dr. Guterres. Can you hear us? Okay, there you are. You're muted, Dr. Guterres. Can you hear us? We cannot hear you. It shows that your mic is muted. What does it say, Caitlin? Did you have the setting that they're muted when they enter, or? Oh yeah, she's shaking her head yes.
Not even let me unmute herself. Maybe address to Dr. Spaniel.
Dr. Spaniel, are you able to talk to us?
I think you can hear me, but it won't let my camera turn on.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, let's see what,
No, I'm trying to fix it. I'm sorry. Hold on, I'm gonna go into my settings. I apologize.
it's okay. We're waiting for the other candidate to rejoin as well. Dr. Guthedis, is there any way you could call in maybe? Call in on the phone? You cannot call in either? Someone here suggested you push the space bar. Our IT coordinator saying it's not on our end. No? The only other thing I can think of is if you call my phone and we put you right here next to the mic and hope for the best. I'm okay with that if you can coordinate that. Dr. Guthedis, the district does not have a Zoom account with the capability to hold the Zoom meeting. Oh, she does. Let's see if on our end we can.
I was gonna say, check your volume, because mine was turned all the way down low on your computer. If you did, oh, sorry. I just don't have a camera.
And Dr. Spaniel, you were able to unmute yourself when you entered. Were you muted?
Was.
Can we?
Yes, I can unmute myself. I just can't get my camera to work.
Can
I
we?
can sign out, sign right back in and see if it works.
Can we try maybe closing the meeting and restarting the meeting? Let's try. We're going to try that on our end.
Okay, thank you.
Nope. No.
Ms. Caitlin, do you have any other suggestions? Because we have one candidate that we can't see the video, and then another candidate that we can't hear, and that creates a problem for our forum today or our questions. So if you can pull any tricks, would be great. Thank you.
So Dr. Gutierrez, our IT coordinator, is trying to work on maybe doing a Microsoft Teams meet. So bear with us, please. Dr. Spaniel, our IT coordinator, is going to try to see about setting up a Microsoft Teams link so we could see you and we can hear from Dr. Gutierrez. So bear with us, please.
Trying to figure, but when I jumped in earlier, my camera worked, so I did something. Let me check.
So we made it.
Share that link
Yeah, that's what we're talking right now. So if she figures that we can go on Teams, then we'll try and get the link onto our public page and let everybody know that we're going to go through there instead.
We haven't heard from our IT coordinator yet. She's working.
No, not yet.
Okay, fine.
Sure. You're welcome.
Hi, Dr. Spaniel, can you hear us?
Yeah, but yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
I don't know what this is blocking on my camera. I was just in a Zoom and Teams meeting the other day, and this has never happened before.
Well,
Any suggestions?
at least we can hear you.
Well, I apologize. This is horrible. For me, I'm sorry my computer's not working right. Let me see if I try to put a background. I've got all of my buttons in my settings turned on, all the cameras turned on. So I don't know.
Do you have a Chromebook device or
No, it's HP and it's like not even a month old. That's a problem as I upgraded.
we see your background?
Oh, okay, good. Let me see if it'll, okay, let's see if it'll let me jump in there.
There's
Try to get rid of the background.
Dr. Guterres. Dr. Guterres, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
There we go. Yay.
All right, let's get reset.
Let me thank Ms. Caitlin. Working great under pressure. Thank you, Ms. Caitlin. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, so we can go ahead and we're going to start with introductions first. And so first to begin is Dr. Guterres. You have 5 minutes to introduce yourself, and I believe there's still that 5-minute timer up there for you to view. Can you guys see it?
I see a timer, but I think it's the meeting timer.
I think once it gets, our IT coordinator pushes the timer, you'll see it. And if not, we can let you know when the 5 minutes is wrapping up.
I will also set a timer on my phone. How about we help each other out that way?
And the president is setting a timer too, so whenever you're ready, Dr. Guterres, go right ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, well, I will take a deep breath because that was a little stressful. Like, why is my microphone not working? But we figured it out. So good evening, everybody. My name is Berenice Gutierrez, and I am very glad to be here tonight, glad to be finally online. So I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, just down the road from you. And I started my career in the Gadsden Independent School District, working in the Chapadal community. I worked in Chapadal for 5 years, and my classroom was a converted military barrack. And I'll never forget the day when I lined up my kids to go to the bus when the roof caved in. So I definitely know the perks and the challenges of working in a rural school district. I was in Gadsden for 8 years and got to know the district and all the many little micro communities that make up that district. And then I always say I met a boy who wanted to leave El Paso, and had it not been for him, I probably would have remained in Gadsden my entire career. But he had bigger aspirations, so I have lived in multiple states and have worked in some pretty big school districts. I've worked at Portland Public, San Antonio Independent School District. Albuquerque has been by far the biggest district that I've worked in, and have moved my way up from bilingual classroom teacher to assistant superintendent, and have had the opportunity to work with many amazing people and be mentored and do some really good work. I've been a turnaround principal in 2 different states and have had really great student outcomes. But for me, the thing that always matters the most is the impact on the kids. I just had one of my participants, I ran a Latino mentor group when I was an assistant superintendent, and those quote-unquote kids are now in their 30s, the audacity of them to grow up. Just had one.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. Dr. Spaniel, you have 5 minutes to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name.
Dr. Spaniel, were you concluding your statements?
Yes. Could you all hear me? Because I just noticed my microphone said it was muted.
No, yes, ma'am, we can hear you loud and clear, but we are having some technical difficulties, but go ahead and wrap up. You have a minute left.
Yes, I feel very honored to make it and compete against this caliber of individual, and I feel that Cobre could benefit from my background too, and my ability to work well with people and help them grow and learn. And thank you all for inviting me today.
Thank you, Dr. Spaniel. I'm going to ask that we just take a quick 2 to 3 minute break. We're having some technical difficulties on our end with our YouTube feed, and so we want to make sure that we can remedy that so that the public can hear. So
I'm going to try to sign out and sign back in so maybe y'all can see me.
So
okay?
maybe let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break, and then we'll reconvene back at 5:37.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Miss Caitlin, did she walk out to? Okay. Is she aware that YouTube viewers? Is she? Okay.
Dr. Gutierrez, we're still working on our end.
Test. Test. Okay, well, I heard it now.
Is it okay now? Somebody just off time. Somebody just off time.
Actually, we're hearing everything you're saying, Mr. Pepper. Yeah. I think it's better now. I don't know.
Better?
What do you think?
I asked Ms. Badagan from Central.
Test. Test.
Dr. Gutierrez or Dr. Spaniel, can one of you guys just come off and say something? Oh, I think you have me muted. Dr. Gutierrez and Dr. Spaniel, can you just come off mute and say something for us?
Oh. Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, no.
I'm hearing it. It's not.
Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you. We're just having some issues with our YouTube feed.
Okay. I was trying to sign in on a different thing, but it's not allowing me to.
Okay, I think so.
Okay.
Are you able to turn that off, Caitlin?
Yeah. I got the voice cancellation on.
No, that feedback. Okay. Well, that's what I'm asking. Okay, thank you, Dr. Gutierrez and Dr. Spaniel, and our apologies about our technology issues.
I'm gonna find out this.
As we know in education, we have to roll with the punches. As a teacher, I taught kindergarten virtual, so thank you for giving us grace. So that concluded our introductions. We are now going to move on to our question and answer segment of the forum. On Thursday, April 3rd, parents, staff, and community members were sent a monkey survey via email. That survey was tied to the individual email address of the recipient and invited the recipient to submit one question that could reasonably be answered in 5 minutes by the finalists. We are fortunate to receive 10 questions. We will be asking 10 questions during this forum. We will continue our rotation. Since we started the introductions with Dr. Guterres, this time Dr. Spaniel will begin. Finalists, do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the first question, Dr. Spaniel. How would you turn around the public's opinion of the Cobre School District and guide it through the challenges it has been facing?
I think first I'd have to do a survey to get input from the community to find out what are the deficiencies within the district. I'd also look at data. I would look at what has been used to grade the school and where they are ranked. Data shows us a lot, but it also leaves a lot out. So it's looking at the big picture, getting input from everybody, developing a plan, and being able to instill that. You just can't walk into any organization and say, I'm going to fix you, without learning what the cultural barriers are, learning the statuses of teachers. Do we have a high staff turnover rate, or do we have longevity? And with that longevity, what types of professional development have been given to help the teachers grow and learn, and also get input from the community. What are you looking for? What are, take that time to have those community meetings, to have those forums, and to gather data. Both of us, I think, are pretty equipped when we were doing our research for our dissertation. We had to gather a lot of data to prove, to prove our research. And with me, mine is on effective teaching and learning. And the one thing that I've learned in my 35 years in education is you're only as good as your leader is. And if you have a leader that is open to learning, open to communication, can't take the job personally, there will be times when people are upset with you. You've got to make sure that you have and work with the community members. I am a Rotarian. I think if I was hired, one of the first things I would do was go meet with the Rotary Club and see how involved they are, even though it's Silver City, but it is Silver City and Cobre. So just a lot of planning and then executing that plan and making sure that you're working through the process with all of the those that want to know and want to make a difference within the district. So it takes time. You're not, it took me to take a low-performing school. I did 1 in 2 years, but they were at the 50th percentile. That is not acceptable to me. The other, in Fort Worth, I was there for 4 years, and we took it from the lowest to one of the highest, and was recognized in the state of Texas for high academic gains. So it's longevity and consistency. I still have 3 minutes. I'm getting confused by this thought because it seemed like it started after I started.
Dr. Spaniel, you have about 2 minutes left. Our board president started it when you started talking. So you have 2 minutes left.
Okay. It was showing me 3:40. All right. So, sorry. Once again, it's just, like I said, you've got to go out and you've got to get to know your community. You've got to have an open door policy. You're open. You've got to get to what the issue is, what the problem is. I haven't met any of the staff or any of the community members, so I'm thinking we're both kind of coming in blind. But I feel I'm a people person. I'm very understanding. I like to listen, and I want to develop a plan. I'm not going to insert everything without finding all the facts. I would like to look at data. I'd like to look at trends. Have you all had increase in population and students? Have you had a decrease? Have you had more families moving in or out? What type of environments are we coming from? There's a whole facet that goes into everything of coming around school, but a lot of it is just taking the time to work with the kids and, building their self-esteem, exposing them to things that they've not been exposed to, and working with the families and the Board of Education to drive drive it in the correct direction. You have to have buy-in from the teachers. If you come in first day on the job and say, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this without what's in place, that's going to shoot you in the foot the first day out. So it's working with everybody, developing together, and a lot of collaboration, and just asking. With me, what you see is what you get. I am very open. I want to learn, and I want to help people grow and develop.
Thank you, Dr. Spaniel. Dr. Gutierrez, would you like me to read the question again?
Yes, please, I would appreciate that.
Okay. The question was, how would you turn around the public's opinion of the Cobre School District and guide it through the challenges it has been facing? And you have 5 minutes.
So, first of all, the opinion, my first 90 days are going to be my entry point, right? I listen and learn, and then at the end of the 90 days, that's when the lead part begins. So I would have to set up a variety of opportunities to listen from the community, the staff, the teachers. What is the opinion? Because right now, I don't know what the opinion is. Right? I'm taking your word that it needs to be worked on. So this opinion has been developed over time. And I need to know from people, what is your opinion? What is informing your opinion? What is it that you feel needs to be worked on? And like I told you when we first met, I have my 3 questions. What's working well? We need to continue to foster that. What's not working well? And we need to address that right away. And what do you need from me as your new leader? That's where I'm going to collect my data, because that's going to give me the patterns. That's going to really let me know what I need to work on. And that might also give me some of those root causes. Some of it might be misconceptions. Some of it might be miscommunication. And I will tell you, you can never communicate enough. I learned that as a principal. You can send out emails, you can have a newsletter, you can have the website, you can have the different parent apps, and you will still have different parents that will tell you, you don't communicate enough. Maybe that's what needs to happen. We need to have more communication. Is our social media putting out information about when we're going to have late starts or when we're not going to have school? Are we putting out information about parent-teacher conferences? That might be one of the solutions. Here's a lot of information that maybe you haven't had before, and that's one way for you to begin to trust us and to begin to see how we are operating as a school district, so to begin to have that transparency. And then once I have all that information, I will work with you, the board, to say, how do we create a strategic plan that is going to address our academics, that is going to address our operations, and that is going to address our community. Because those are the 3 major areas that we're going to need to address in order to be successful as a district. First and foremost, of course, academics. We need the operations so that we have good buildings and nutrition services and transportation and all of those supports so that students can come and learn. And then the community, if what I'm hearing from you is our community doesn't quite trust us, doesn't quite believe in us, then we need to definitely work on it. So after those first 90 days of really being out there, really being involved, talking to people, coming together with you to say, we need to put together a plan. And then we need to implement it and be consistent. That's the other piece in order to gain trust. Once we put the strategic plan in place and communicate that plan, we need to follow through with it. If we say we're going to get better at communication, then we need to be better at communication. If they're asking us to do certain actions, then we need to follow up on that. If some of what they're asking us to do is not possible, then we need to be honest about that as well and explain the why. I've never had a parent be upset with me after I've explained why I cannot. They might not like what I've had to say, but once they know why, then they understand better, and you start to gain that trust. I will tell you, when I left my first principalship, my community was upset that I resigned to move on because they felt that we had such strong community engagement, and they felt that the school was the heart of that community, but because we worked really, really hard to gain their trust and to be one and to be the heart of that community. So I've done that work before, and I would work now at a much higher level as a superintendent to make the district a part of the community and regain that trust.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. So I will read the next question, and each finalist will again have 5 minutes to answer the question. Continuing with our rotation, Dr. Gutierrez, you will begin. So I'll go ahead and read the question. Question number 2. How will you ensure accountability is consistent across all schools and administration in the district?
So what I'd like to do, and I just did this in my most recent position, I have a template that I use when I meet with all of my direct reports. And that template we use on a monthly basis. And I have it since we started this public forum in Google. I have it in Google, and I have one for everybody. And when I meet with them, we have it in front of us, and we're tracking our conversations. I then use that document to write out the evaluation for my direct reports. Because then it's not something that it becomes emotional or something that people are saying, well, where did you get this from? I got it from our document, the document that you and I have been working on throughout the year. And in that document, there are certain areas that I have them fill out and we color code it. So if there's something that needs to be followed through by them or by me, if there's a deadline, or if we need to talk to another central office person, like for example, at one of my high schools, the gym floor was caving in, and I needed to follow up with facilities, figure out, do we have the money? How are we going to address the gym floor? So we put, who we needed to follow up with and color code all that. So the areas that I have are there any essential program updates? Are there any approval or decisions that are needed by me for them? Are they facing any key challenges or obstacles? Do they have any innovations or opportunities? Are there any ongoing concerns? And then there's some updates. And those updates can be about the school, but I also like updates about them. Because I like to have relationships with my direct reports, and I like to know people as people. And we just revisit that document every single month. And so if we said, going back to the gym floor example, if I said I'm going to reach out to Lou being our facilities person, and I come back 30 days later and I haven't reached out to Lou, then it's accountability for me as well, right? So it's a dual accountability. Or if the principal said, I'll reach out to Lou, and then I show up and say, hey, so last month you said you were going to reach out to Lou, what did he say? And the principal says, oh, I didn't do it. Then I can say, well, why didn't you? You wrote it down, you said you were going to do it by Friday the 13th. What prevented you from making that call? So that then it becomes a challenge, right? And how can I support you in ensuring that happens because this gym floor is caving in? So those are some of those kinds of things. And like I said, at the end of the year, I had 11 different meetings that had happened, and I had plenty of information that was able to go into an evaluation. And then supplemented by their data and their key performance indicators, which we also had at the top of the document. It had what their KPIs were. And so they all had to have 3 key performance indicators, 2 of them that were connected to the board's goals, and 1 that was a personal one, a personal growth one. And we also checked in on those every month. So if your data isn't moving in the direction that the board wants it to move, why? Why not? What's preventing you from it? What do you need from me? And if I'm the one giving you all the support, but you're still not doing the work, why not? What's going on? So the conversations went really deep, and we held accountability. That's why I had the highest performing zone in the district. All 13 of my schools were schools of distinction, because there was mutual accountability when we were documenting. And so there was nothing that anybody could say that wasn't data-driven, because it was already done.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. Dr. Spaniel, I'll go ahead and read the question for you again. How do you ensure accountability is consistent across all schools and administration in the district? Dr. Spaniel, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. Not to be repetitive, but it's all about developing a plan and working with everybody. I believe how I worked with, as a superintendent intern, I know on opening new schools and setting things up, you just can't throw things out there. There's different steps. Yes, you have to look at data. You have to look at population. You have to have those forums to meet with people to gather the data. You can't make assumptions. So once you make the data, I think you should always include all of your leadership together. You develop a plan. And I always have agendas and they're preset. But when I go in there with a set template or what you want to do, or we're going to do it this way, then sometimes it works, other times it does not. In my past experiences, I feel when your leadership has true input and together you can develop that, that's when you're going to see the growth. When I talk about turning schools around, when we turn schools around, you've got to look at data. You've got to look at FARC scores. I mean, when you can take a district or a place from a 50% passing up to almost 100%, that shows you. I could have told you what 20 kids were not successful. And it's all about the development. I've learned working with several superintendents throughout, and I've had some great mentors. My last mentor at Fort Worth ISD is still a mentor today, Dr. Melody Johnson. And one thing that I learned from her is the more input you get, the more transparency you show, and everybody feels a part of the process, then you grow and move things together. And to me, it's all about getting that input and having your community members, having your leadership, and developing a plan that's sustainable and that you can show growth, because you will not move a district in a year. I mean, you may show growth, but you're not going to move it sustainability. It takes time, it takes consistency, and it takes everybody working together. Approach is everything. How you talk to people, how you present your items is everything, and you've got to get that buy-in. If it's top down all the time, I guess everybody just has different styles. I believe collaboration is very, very important. Data is very important, and working with stakeholders. Also, too, being able to develop, I have written grants. Sometimes districts don't have the funding that's needed. I know that in my career I've received over $5 million in grants, and that helps, because I don't like to be told no, and funding should can be a barrier. So, it's building those relationships, looking for grants, and then putting in with expectations of how you can get the funding to help move it, whether it's incentives. I think I said in my personal interview, I worked with, when I worked in DISD in the Rose Performance School, and it was in a very rough part of town. We got Hunt Oil to give us $80,000 every semester, and I had them when we wrote it down. We used it as an incentive, and that really made a difference in growth. So it's all about, let me recap quickly, developing a plan, working with the community, moving together, and if we have to raise additional funds to put that plan into action, that's something I'm willing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spaniel. So I'll go ahead and read the next question, and then each finalist will have 5 minutes to answer. And then continuing with our rotation, Dr. Spaniel, you will go first. So I'll go ahead and read the question. Should there be an issue concerning a family member at Cobre schools, how would you handle the situation? i.e., the family member is being investigated for a Cobre High policy infraction.
So, for example, you have to, if something happened that put a student or a staff member in a compromising position, they need to be held accountable. That's the part of the job, but we're role models, and our job is to do what's in the best interest of the students, faculty, and the parents. And if somebody breaks the district policy that could put another person or a student at risk, or two students at risk, they need to be held accountable. Depending on what the infraction is, it may be a write-up, it may be a suspension with pay, it may be having to, do your investigation and move forward with action. I think one of the things that hurts school districts is when we let it slide and we don't address the issue. Yeah, being a leader, you're going to have to make tough calls, and you have to share those expectations up front. This is what is expected. You are the leaders, whether you are my leadership team, whether you're the faculty and staff, everybody, if you break a policy, you have to be held accountable. That's a part of the job that I don't particularly care for, but that's a part of the job that has to be done, because what happens if you don't address it? You put the district in a situation where a liability issue could come up. And right now, we all know that insurance rates for small school districts are very, very high because of negligence, failure to follow policy, not reporting, and then who does it cost? It costs the school districts, it costs their parents, it's our taxpayers' money. So that's why processes are in place. And you just have to follow through. I think also, too, when I say you have to follow through, that's why it's very important at the beginning of the year. You need to lay it out, and everybody doesn't like it. Nobody likes to look at policy, but we need to talk about it. We need to review the handbook. If there are board policies that have been updated that weren't there last year, it needs to be discussed with faculty and staff so that they understand. One of the things that I've always done as a leader, even when I worked at a high school and we had 5,600 kids, I had to meet with them by grade level, but these are my expectations. This is what can happen when you fail to follow procedures. Texas was a zero tolerance state. And, kids tagging the building when I was there, that was a felony. And you had to educate them on that. First, that put me in that position. If you missed a lot of school, you had to go before a judge. And one thing I would tell the kids is I said, how do you think your parents are going to feel if I call them up and say, you've skipped 21 days and we've been calling and sending letters? You have to explain the process. You just can't go in blind and do it top down. So it starts at the top, but everybody needs to be held accountable. And like I said, protocols, everything needs to be put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spaniel. Dr. Gutierrez, I'll go ahead and read the question again. Should there be an issue concerning a family member at Cobre schools, how would you handle the situation? i.e., the family member is being investigated for a Cobre High School policy infraction. You have 5 minutes.
So I would want to clarify further, because when you say family member, are we referring to our staff as family? Which I would hope that we work so closely together that we consider each other family. Or are we talking about a community member, sorry, I can't say that word right now, parent that has broken one of our policies? So each one of those requires a different path, right? And which policy has been broken? Is there legal ramifications? It's a blooming onion, if you will, and you have to peel the layers and then approach it in that way. Depending on the infraction, that's the route that you have to take, and yes, there does need to be accountability. Who do we need to involve? Do we need to involve legal? Do we need to involve law enforcement? We cannot be hands-off. We have to address it, definitely. I shared with you during my interview, I do not take student safety, lightly. With my sister having been involved in that Walmart shooting, it just makes my heart flutter. And so student safety is my number one priority. We need to make sure students are safe. And so what is the policy violation? Were students put at risk? I just had a conversation with a colleague of mine, and his son was doing other kids' homework and making money. And the son thought, this is great. And he said, no. This is academic dishonesty. You cannot do this. And so he took care of it because, of course, he's an educator. He said, you cannot do this. This is dishonest. And if you need money, you ask me for money. And that one is not harmless either, right? The other kids were not learning, and this kid's making money doing their homework. So what is the policy? Who's being harmed? How are they being harmed? Who needs to be involved? All of those questions need to be answered, and we need to address it. We also need to make sure that we hold privacy. And that's one thing that will upset people, but we need to remember we need to honor students' FERPA. We cannot disclose. We need to honor employees' right to their personnel files being private. We cannot disclose. Those are the kinds of things. So whenever it comes down to any kind of policy infraction, whether it's an employee or a community member, it's very sensitive, and I've done it before. Unfortunately, I agree with Dr. Spaniel, it's not pleasant, but I've had to place people on administrative leave on the spot for various different things. Some of it has ended up in termination, and some of it has just ended up in something minor. It's like we're going to have to put something in your file. But ultimately, as superintendent, it's my responsibility to ensure that we are consistently enforcing our policies, because we decided to adopt them for a reason. And we decided to adopt them for student safety, for academic integrity, to protect the district from legal consequences. So we cannot ignore our policies. And once the situation is resolved, we also need to have some integrity and professionalism and ensure that we're not spreading other people's business. And if people do come and say, well, what happened to X, Y, and Z? We say, well, it's been resolved. And we are not able to share that with you, but you need to trust us that we've addressed it and it's been resolved. So just top-notch professionalism is what I would expect from myself, the board, and everybody involved.
Thank you, Dr. Guterres. So the next question, we're on question 4. Again, each finalist will have 5 minutes. Continuing with our rotation, Dr. Guterres, you'll begin. The question is, how will you bring kids to a healthy interest in education in the Cobre district? And then this part was not really a question, but more of a comment. It said, reward them and hope to see a change.
Well, I've done this in several different ways. And my dissertation topic was about the importance of mentoring in the pursuit of education. And it was modeled after Dr. Angela Valenzuela's book, The Practice Schooling. And when I read that book, I thought, oh my gosh, this is my entire K-12 experience. And so when I did my focus group, I worked with young women who had so many barriers. And my question was, why do you keep trying? Why do you keep trying to get a high school diploma in spite of all these barriers? And they said, I remember the one girl, and I always quote her, she said, I don't believe in myself, but because I have one person that believes in me, I'm going to graduate. And so never underestimate the power of one person believing in that child. And that's how I started my mentorship group, which I call Future Hispanic Leaders. And I'll never forget the children that participated in that are now, like I said, in their 30s. It stuns me every time I say that. From Future Hispanic Leaders, I actually had 2 students who were twins get the Gates Millennial Scholarship, which pays for your education through your PhD. And you can take up until you're 50 years old to go get that PhD. Bill Gates will pay for your education. And they are undocumented. I don't think they are still, but they were at the time. So for them, it was such a big deal. Because I remember them telling me, why should we bother? We don't matter in this country. And I said to them, you should bother because you might matter. And now they're Gates millennials. They're doing fabulous. So, like I said to you earlier, I'm a warm demander. I hold really high expectations of kids. And I'm constantly in their ear. And I'm constantly nagging them about, what are your grades? Why weren't you here? What's going on? I have a group of teams that I'm working with right now. Some of them have flourished a lot more than others. Some of them still need a lot of watering, a lot of fertilizing, a lot of nagging, but they're coming along at their own pace. And that's what you need to remember. Every single child is capable. Every single child has potential. And they're all different. Someone, I'm kind of going with the garden theme here that I didn't mean to, but some of them need more sunlight, some of them need more water, some of them need more fertilizer, and you just have to find out what is it that child needs. And then they get there. The fact that both of my alternative high schools reached distinction in the state of Colorado, people were saying, how did you do that? I said, well, I put the right people in the right place. Those principals were warm demanders. Those teachers were warm demanders. And all of us were highly invested in those kids' success, authentically invested. Because that's the other thing. Students know if you're not authentic. And if you're just feeding them, lying, and saying, oh, education matters, education is important, but you're not authentic about it, they will see right through you. When I was a turnaround principal, I had a student say to me, every Monday you stand on the steps and you say, how was your weekend? Do you really care? Or are you just asking everybody? And that took me aback. So then I had to find him in the halls and say to him, I really do care what you did this weekend. And I really do care how your weekend was. It's not just something that I ask. Because kids will call you out. So to answer your question, you have to be authentic and you have to be invested. And they will see that and they will rise to the expectation and they will achieve.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. Dr. Spaniel, I'll go ahead and read the question for you again. How will you bring kids to a healthy interest in education in the Cobre District? And again, the second part was reward them and hope to see a change. You have 5 minutes. Dr. Spaniel, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I said I'm going to mimic because you said something what I said. So, it's all about building relationships. Kids know. Kids know if you like them and if you don't like them. And, my experience, I worked in a lot of inner city schools. And when I say that I was in turnaround schools, I wasn't put in, like, the nice schools. I was put in where you had to go through metal detectors. We had drive-bys. I mean, one of the schools at Hamilton that was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I loved it. But 75% of my students came from incarcerated backgrounds. And it was a predominantly African-American school. And those children, they were tough because they had to be tough because they were raising themselves, So when they saw me every single day walking in the classroom saying, "Good morning, how are you all doing today? I'm just coming around checking on you." And that's something I still do. And my teachers now are like, "Why do you come in every day?" And I said, "Because it's important for you all to see me, but it's more important for the kids to understand and know that I'm here. And I'm here for you." And so that's a routine that I do every day. I know it's a little harder as a superintendent. When I did my superintendent internship, I couldn't fit all 185 schools and 186 elementary, 35 high schools, 35 middle schools. But it's all about building those relationships and developing plans. And one of the things I did in Tulsa was American Airlines, they had where they worked on planes there, and they became our partners. I met with Rotarian clubs. I met with different church and community organizations. I went and spoke at Chamber of Commerce, and I started a program called the Lunch Buddies. And this is where I got business people to actually come into the schools. And once a month, they weren't there to tutor them, they weren't there to lecture them, they were there to build relationships and mentor kids, learn about their interest in everything. A couple years ago, I ran into an attorney that I had buddied with this child. Both of his parents were incarcerated. He was living with his grandma, who had a lot of issues, and two of his siblings had been killed in drive-bys. So he had a pretty rough background. Anyway, this attorney guy ended up mentoring this child, and I ran into him when I was speaking at an event. He came up to me afterwards, and he goes, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "Do you remember the student that you put with me?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, let me tell you about him." He goes, "I ended up mentoring him not only through middle school, but all the way through high school. He started working at my office, and he just graduated from OU Law School." And I was like, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "Yeah." And it just made me cry because I was like, wow. And mentorships just have such an impact. But it's about, bringing in those mentors, developing plans, developing relationships, working with them, and it's okay to reward them. I did a lot of incentives. I did a lot of incentives for perfect attendance. I did a lot of incentives for just, if you were at school every day, I did like stores where when I told you Home Oil gave us money, we did for perfect attendance. They got these Eagle Bucks. A lot of my kids in inner city schools could never afford them. This is going to date me. Could never afford Game Boys. But guess what? They could earn one. They might not have been able to buy iPods back in the day, but guess what? They could earn one. So it's giving and developing relationships, having a plan, and there's a focus. Because guess what? If your child's in school every day, they're going to learn. They're going to be exposed to academics, and they're going to grow. Why do children skip school? 9 times out of 10, they've had a bad incident, someone was ugly to them, or they don't want to be in that person's class. And it's being able to just be out there, be visible, build relationships with your students, get community involved, find money. I don't like to be told, no, we don't have it in the budget, so I will go out and raise my own funds so I can do things that's going to enhance instruction. And I mean, board members, I have been told no. But what I'm saying is, bringing in grants and just doing things to help these children succeed. And that's what it's all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spaniel. So that moves us to question 5. I'll read the next question. Again, you will both have 5 minutes. Continuing with our rotation, Dr. Spaniel, you'll begin first. The question is, how do you plan on improving the educational outcomes and experiences for the staff and students that attend and work at the Cobre Consolidated School District?
This sounds like
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I feel like I'm being a little redundant. One of the things when you're coming new, it's about, I like to do surveys. I like to do surveys that look at specific things. I ask different teachers questions about, what do they know about multiple intelligences? What do they know? And I know that's old school, but let me tell you what, if you don't know how kids learn, how can you teach them? If you don't understand that you may have some children that are auditory learners or visual learners, and you put your visual learners in the back of the room, you have to understand how teachers learn. My dissertation was actually published into a book and it's on Amazon, but it's on effective teaching and classroom management, because I saw a big correlation with that. Why do classrooms have kids that misbehave? They're either bored, there's not consistency in there, teachers aren't organized and well planned, and I have high expectations for teaching and learning. And when kids understand the material that's being taught, they're going to do well. I was that child. That pushed those boundaries. Granted, I got in trouble when I got home, but if a teacher was rude, if a teacher was dismissive, if a teacher wouldn't take the time to teach me things, I would be that kid that would call them out on it. And yeah, I'm not saying it was right, but we know that kids are more advanced today and will ask questions. I would read ahead of the book and I'd ask a question. If the teacher got it wrong, I'd say, well, that's not what it says in the book, and part of it in the office. But my point is, kids, I think their brains are faster now than our brains ever were with all of the technology and everything out there. So how do we get them to learn? Do you understand the pedagogy? Do you understand how they learn? And are you effective in teaching? And as an administrator, a lot of people want to contract and bring people out. I don't. I want to teach my staff. I want to work with them. I want to observe them. I want to demonstrate lessons that I have as a principal. And even as a superintendent, you have to take the time to develop yourself as much as you develop your kids. It's on you. As an instructional leader, if you cannot walk in there and demonstrate a lesson and show how you can ask questions and show how you can get engagements, then how can you measure teacher effectiveness? So it's working with people, developing plans, making sure they understand strategies. We know in the state of New Mexico, they really push Common Core standards, or they push the standards, their performance standards. Do teachers understand how to break them down? Do they understand what they're looking for? And not making them harder than they are. We don't teach to a test. We teach skills. We teach skills that so when a kid walks in there and feels confident, they know how to read, they understand words. I'm old school. I believe in word walls. I love to walk into classrooms and see word walls, and I want to ask what does this mean? And I mean, I had a senior tell me one year, somebody's going to have to help Dr. Spaniel next year, because every time she'd come into my class, she would ask me what these words meant, and I worked really hard to tell her what they were. It wasn't that I didn't know what they meant, but they felt good telling me what they meant. If those kids don't understand and can't read, what are we doing to address that? And it's very, very important that it starts at the top, it filters down, and if you can't teach and develop your teachers, then it's going to be at a loss. You're going to be at a loss. And look at society. You know, we don't focus on basic skills anymore. We plug kids in, and yes, computers do have some great tools, but if they can't go in and read a test, how do you think they're going to do on their SATs or their ACTs? So it's all about building foundational skills, working in the best interest of students, and making sure the teachers have the skills to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spaniel. Dr. Guterres, I'll go ahead and read the question again. How do you plan on improving the educational outcomes and experiences for the staff and students who attend and work for the Cobre Consolidated School District? You have 5 minutes, Dr. Guterres.
Well, it's going to be part of my learning when I come into Cobre. I need to figure out where are you, where have you been? You know, what curriculum are you using, what professional development has happened for the teachers? Because if you've had a recent adoption and no professional development, or you've had professional development but no recent adoption, you know, all of those things play a factor. I agree with Dr. Spaniel. You need to be in classrooms and you need to know what's happening, what's going on. Part of the work that we did here in Colorado that made us such an effective zone was we really worked on what does effective instruction look like. You know, you can go get your principal license, you can become a principal, and I can tell you, when I was handed my first bundle of keys, it was a big old bundle of keys for my principalship, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for everything that comes with that principalship, right? I still needed mentorship, I still needed training, and so I remembered that. Let's help principals not just be managers, but be instructional leaders. And we did a lot of that work here in Colorado. Every month we focused on calibrating. You know, 1 month we talked about questioning strategies. Are these questions going deep enough to challenge students? Another month we focused on who's doing all the talking. Is it the teachers that are doing all the talking, or is it the students that are doing most of the talking? So really working with our building leaders to know what effective instruction looked like. And then once they felt comfortable, we brought in cheerleaders and said, now we're going to have you demo lessons for your peers and have you debrief those lessons with each other and ask tough questions. Because unfortunately, we don't give teachers opportunities to see each other enough. We get so busy with running school that we don't give them opportunities to see each other. And you might have somebody who is amazing at teaching the one lesson that maybe I need to have modeled for me. And I can go in there and the lesson planning. Do they have common lesson plan time? What does your master schedule look like? Do they have enough time to sit down and plan the lessons and talk to each other and deconstruct those standards and talk about which ones are your power standards, which ones are your supporting standards? What does the data tell us? Have the kids already mastered these standards, or are there gaps? So giving them that support to work with one another. There's a lot of different ways to give them those supports, but I would need to look at where you've been and where you're at, because I don't want to come in and make assumptions about what is needed. So what is the state of the district right now? I do agree, you need to start with building leaders. I shared with you before, I have an expectation that principals be in classrooms. You cannot effectively move student achievement outcomes from an office. It's not going to happen. And I won't be sitting in an office. I'll be visiting schools multiple times a week to go in there and tell the principal, let's go see teachers, let's go see kids, so that we really understand what is needed. And I'll say this again, we're going to need to develop a strategic plan. And in that strategic plan, we're going to need to say, what do we want to see in the next 5 years academically in the Cobre School District? And put together some key performance indicators, because that also helps teachers to know what direction do I even need to be going in. So those are some of the things that I would do.
Thank you, Dr. Guterres. So that moves us to question number 6. Again, each finalist will have 5 minutes to answer the question. Continuing with our rotation, Dr. Guterres, you will go first. Question number 6. How would you ensure fair employee investigations after an allegation?
Well, you need to make sure that you have human resources involved and legal involved. And that might sound too formal or too threatening, but it's actually for the protection of the district, and it's actually for the protection of the employee as well. If you don't already have strong human resource policies, and I don't know that, so that would be part of what I would need to look at, then we need to make sure that there are strong human resource policies around investigations. People get really nervous when you talk about administrative leave, but sometimes you do that, again, for the protection of the employee, because you want the investigation to be as neutral and impartial as possible, so that everybody gets due process. You don't want a tainted investigation. You want a clean investigation. So you also need to move as quickly as possible, because people's memories are not the greatest. And right now, with technology, I think we have very short attention spans and very, very short memories. I know for myself, I'll think of something, I may be in the bedroom and I'll think of something, and then I walk in the living room and I'm like, what was it that I was just saying that I needed to get done? And it literally, in 2 seconds, I've lost the one thing that I thought was really important and key. So if somebody's witness to whatever the allegation is, you need to get them to put that in paper, their statement, right away, so it doesn't get lost. Talking to all your witnesses, talking to your attorney, following policy, and it also depends on the allegation, right? How deep you're going to have to go. It's always very, very complex. You want to ensure that there is due process, that you bring that individual in, that you give them an opportunity to give their version, that you listen to them, that they also get an opportunity to give a statement, and that you're as quick as possible. I mean, the process needs to just be really cut and clear. You don't want to muddle it. And so I can ramble on for 5 minutes, but it's really what you need to do. Quick investigation that is very impartial, that is protecting everybody, that is due process, and it goes as deep as it needs to go based on the allegation.
Thank you, Dr. Guterres. Dr. Spaniel, I'll go ahead and read the question for you. How would you ensure fair employee investigations after an allegation? You have 5 minutes, Dr. Spaniel. You are muted.
Sorry about that. To ensure a fair investigation, it's a process, and you need to make sure that you have a plan in place, whether it's putting together a special team that follows district policy. And yes, your HR person will probably need to be one of those, or a director that has been trained in how to do a thorough investigation. You need to collect information on every side of, sorry about that. You've got to collect information. You've got to give everybody a fair opportunity. And then you have to make sure that not only are you collecting, but whoever you assign, or if you're doing an investigation, you need to make sure that it's fair and impartial. It's easy to throw out allegations, but is there proof? Do you have data? Do you have specific incidents that have been documented? Do you work with that person so they don't feel that they're being violated? But then also the person that the allegations against, you don't want them to make them think that they're guilty until you do your research. And sometimes you do have to put somebody on administrative leave depending on what the allegation is. You know, if it's teacher-student and your allegation shows, I mean, not only are you going to probably end up prosecuting, but that's which was over if the information is true. If that you did something on your own time and there's no proof and no evidence, and that's why you have to be fair and impartial, because I can honestly say I know what it's like to have been strung out on something that wasn't true. And evidence and caring and doing what's in the best interest of the organization is important. That's why due process is important. That's why your investigations are important. And also, whoever you put in charge of those investigations, you know, you've got to make sure that they don't have a bias against the person that they're doing the investigation for. When I talk about my former superintendent in Fort Worth ISD, you know, she was like that. She actually nominated me when I sat on that Cambridge think tank committee. And one of the things that I learned is those were some of the issues that were brought up. How do you investigate? Are you fair? Are you biased? If you pick somebody and you know those two people have a history, why would you pick them? Because that's not giving the victim or the person that there's an alleged allegation about, that you're not giving them the best defense. And as a superintendent, you've got to make sure you have a team that has been trained, that understands how to collect the information and how to put it in a specific format that shows impartiality. And sometimes it may be somebody within the administrative team and with the HR person that has that personality that's not going to make someone feel defensive. You have to have that in place. During my years as a superintendent intern with the Dallas Public Schools, I sat in a lot of termination hearings. And one of the things that would hurt us as a district is when administrators do not do their due diligence and come back on us because they didn't have a preponderance of evidence. And but what people have to understand is negativity nowadays is out there. And you can't get rid of it unless you spend a lot of money, and that's why you face it head on. And that's why you have to, you know, prove that innocence, because it could be somebody's livelihood at stake. And so I feel that you make sure whoever your investigators are close with, have a plan in place, and it's something that the office has worked through with HR, that following policies, rules, procedures, and we're doing what's in the best interest of whoever is wanting an allegation to be looked into. Sorry, I got a little caught up on words there for a minute, but we have to do what's best in the interest of staff.
Thank you, Dr. Spaniel. Again, each finalist will have 5 minutes. We are on question number 7. Continuing with our rotation, Dr. Spaniel, you'll go first. The question is, what is your philosophy about education?
My philosophy in education is, it's a process. You hire good people, you develop their skills, you develop kids' skills, and you see the benefits down the road. My philosophy is you put children first, and that their learning is why we're all here. This is why we have jobs, and how we can make them productive citizens. And when they leave us, when they graduate from high school, their path, they'll be able to choose it because we've prepared them. They have the skill set. They have communication skills. And they're going to be productive citizens. My philosophy that I've written, that I've turned in before, is like 3 pages long, and now I'm going mind blank, so excuse me for that. A lot of it is you just have to have a good heart. I think if you're going to work in education, you truly have to have a love for your students, a love of seeing kids excel. One of the greatest things was seeing a low-performing school go up and kids actually took pride. And so the philosophy is, hiring good people, working with them, training them, and making sure that the benefits of the students' education is at the forefront. And as you make decisions, it's not about you, it's about looking at the big picture and doing what's best for everybody within the organization, from parents to students to teachers, and helping them grow and develop. When I did my dissertation on effective teaching and classroom strategies, that was something that was near and dear to my heart, because you have different type of teachers and different type of learning styles, and being able to develop them and making sure that they understand and know their content, who is that benefit? It benefits the students. So it just goes back to making sure you have the skill set, hiring good people, and letting them do their job, and providing them with the tools and the strategies, and empowering kids. And they've got to always be at the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spaniel. Dr. Guterres, the question was, what is your philosophy about education? And you have 5 minutes.
So education has played a tremendous role in loving land, and not just book learning, but also informal education, so both formal and informal education. It was everything that my parents dreamed of for me and my siblings, and everything that they pushed in our home. I just had a conversation recently with my dad, and he went down that same story of, my goal was to educate you girls. I was like, oh my goodness, how many times have I heard this story? But I will hear it 1,000 times. Again, because it informs my philosophy of education, which is I am unapologetically 100% student-centered. As I said, every student has potential. Every student has the ability to reach that potential. And it is our responsibility as educators to create the conditions for them to thrive. I believe that education, public education, is a moral responsibility, and that we cannot violate the trust that the public puts in us. They send their children to us with that trust that we will do everything to ensure that they are going to be ready and that they will reach their highest potential. It can be a great equalizer, but I also don't believe in pockets of excellence. I think we need systemic excellence. We need to ensure student achievement is scaled through intentional systems design. And that's why I'm seeking to be a superintendent, so that we can build a school district that is intentionally designed so that every student reaches that potential. I've seen it time and again make such a difference. I will tell you, when I began my career, I was one of those educators that was like, everybody has to have a degree. I no longer believe that. I think degrees are great, and they do open doors, but they're not meant for everybody. Some people prefer to enter the workforce, and they need to be prepared to enter the workforce. Some people prefer to serve our country, what my nephew is doing right now, and that's the best path he could have taken. College campus would not have been good for him. And he was prepared to enter the military. So whatever path our youth is going to take, it is our responsibility to ensure that once we hand them that diploma, that they're ready, that they are able to read, write, do math, but also think critically, to be productive citizens, not just of this country, but of the world. Because the world keeps getting smaller and smaller. With technology, we're connected to each other through social media, through all kinds of platforms. And so we are global citizens. And they need to be prepared for that reality that awaits them. And we need to do that through education.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. So that moves us to question number 8. Again, you'll both have 5 minutes to answer. Continuing with our rotation, Dr. Gutierrez, you'll go first. The question is, how do you define student achievement gaps, and what is your vision for closing them in our district?
So gaps exist between your highest achieving group and your quote-unquote lowest achieving group. And I don't like to use deficit-oriented language, but this is the language of accountability and testing. So unfortunately, there are patterns, and those patterns have existed for decades. It's predictable which students will be in the lower achieving groups. And I have been doing continuous improvement work for the last 15 years, right? And so knowing the predictability, it upsets me because we have known that those gaps have existed since I was a student. Why have we not addressed it, right? So my plan is come in and analyze the data. What does it look like? What is the pattern in Cobre? I would want to look back at least 5 years and hope that you have data going back that far. If you don't, then I know that New Mexico PED does. And so look at who has been underachieving in Cobre. Why? Why have those gaps existed and persisted? What have we done to address the persistence of these gaps? What training has been provided? Because one of the groups that predictably underperforms are second language learners. I was second language learner. So do teachers have the tools that they need to be able to make grade level content acceptable to their second language learners? Because it doesn't need to be watered down. They need to access grade level content so that they can achieve at grade level. So do they need training on that? Another group that predictably underperforms are students with identified disabilities, which is a huge spectrum because you have dyslexia, you have dysgraphia, you have reading disabilities, you have autism, so we can't lump them together. So that needs to be disaggregated. And when I work with my leaders, I always say we need to go at least 3 deep. Because it doesn't work to just say we're going to look at the subgroups, because subgroups have subgroups. And if we can go 3 deep or 4 deep, let's just keep drilling down and figuring out what is happening. Dr. Spanish said she knew which were the 20 kids that needed the most supports. You really should, as a principal, know exactly which kids need the most supports. And you should be supporting your teachers in supporting those students. So in order to address any gaps, you need to know your achievement data inside and out. You need to know it by grade level, you need to know it by subgroup, and even though they may not like it, you need to know it by teacher. You don't have to publish it, but you do need to know it by teacher, and sometimes that lets you know which teachers need a little bit more support. Which is okay, because I just had this conversation with my husband. I was not the greatest reading teacher. I did not enjoy teaching reading. And so when we decided to share that task in my grade level, I was relieved because I knew I was not doing a good job in teaching my third graders how to be better readers. And it bothered me because I didn't fail. So there's a lot of data that needs to be, and we need to drill down 3 layers and more, if possible, and then develop a plan for how we're going to address those gaps. That would be my plan going in.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. Dr. Spaniel, I can go ahead and read the question for you. How do you define student achievement gaps, and what is your vision for closing them in our district? You have 5 minutes.
Okay, Dr. Gutierrez, don't think I'm copying off of you, but a lot of what she said is correct, because how did we get this school district to where it was? We actually looked at each student. We looked at what questions that they missed, what areas. Was it estimation? Was it, addition? Was it multiplication? We looked at those specific areas, whether it was math, science, social studies, or ELA. And the great thing about data is if you really look, I know nobody likes standardized tests, but let me tell you what standardized tests does give you. It gives you graphs, it gives you charts, it shows you abilities, and you can narrow it down not only to where the teachers, there's a correlation. For example, in one of our classes, we had 35 kids that didn't understand estimation, and there was a couple of questions. And in that classroom, the teacher that taught math, we had big classes. We had about 35. But she was a strong math teacher, but she wasn't covering estimation. And the 3 questions on it, 60 to 70% of the kids missed it. So that told me, when you go back in, you've got to make sure that every child is on understanding. And that's why you check for understanding. That's why we put every single child on an individual plan. And we show them the data, because sometimes you don't take the time to show kids. We pulled those tests and we said, look, it wasn't that you don't know what you're doing. You would have passed it if you would have gotten these 3 questions right. Let's look at here, probability, estimation. They didn't understand those things, and that's the one thing I love about data, and I love about being able to go in there and look at the test data, is because you can correlate and you can see where teachers were strong, where teachers were low. We also started like an activity where on Fridays we changed and had different kids rotate through a different class. So a teacher who might have had 100% in estimation or probability, she could teach kids ways and strategies to look at it, just to reinforce and help everybody out, because it's a team. It's not just one of us for the glory. If we all pass, then we've all been successful. If we don't look at data, take the time to teach teachers how to break it down, how to look at where they're strong, where they might need assistance, how to, if I'm not a person that could probably teach a physics class, but I guarantee that I could find a professor at the college in Silver City and maybe say, I've got to go to teachers that are struggling with this approach and work with them on that approach. But it's having that skill set. They're providing the training, providing the steps, and sometimes teachers don't get the whole gamut. They skip over things because they feel it's rushed and they don't have time. And that's what gets you when you hit standardized tests. You've got to follow the pacing calendars. I don't like toolbox curriculums. I like to look at standards, curriculum alignment, and we develop our plans according to how we need to meet the kids' needs. It's a lot of work, but when you can put everything in that you know might be tested, that's going to give this kid the skill set. And how to take the test. And one of the things when I'm sitting on that Cambridge think tank committee, a lot of these standardized tests, what she said, there's different minority groups, and they're about seeing if the kids can pick up practical cues. And if we haven't taught them those skills, then we just set them up for, failure. I mean, so it's developing a whole plan, sitting with those kids, looking at individual tests, looking at grouping where the teachers are, how many of the kids passed, how many, and looking at individual questions, bringing that data together. And then one of the things that I did for CS was going throughout the state of New Mexico, helping people do curriculum alignment and strategic planning to make sure that everything was correlated. I ran out of time.
Thank you, Dr. Spaniel. So that moves us to question number 9. Again, each finalist will have 5 minutes. Continuing with our rotation, Dr. Spaniel, you'll go first. Question number 9. What would be your plan for improving the communication between various departments within the district office to better implement the policies and procedures for processes that schools, parents, and students are often faced with?
Communication is so essential, and I think it would be meeting with the different levels and looking at how do you communicate to parents? Do you have a monthly newsletter that goes out and talks about upcoming events? Do you have calendars posted? Do you communicate with everybody to share? This is what we're working on. This is the focus this week. When you don't communicate with your parents, with your faculty, with your staff, with the children, then they're at a loss. They don't know which direction to go. And it starts at the top. When you meet with those directors or associate suits or, administrative teams, what do you need? What plans do you all have in place? You've done your research, especially, I don't know if you're having to hire new administrators or stuff, but you've got to gather that information. You can't go in and make quick decisions. You've got to gather the information and say, this worked really well, this didn't work at all. And develop plans to make sure that we are communicating, and not only communicating, but communicating effectively and letting families and teachers and all of our stakeholders know that, hey, we're here, we have an open communication process, and sometimes we might need to do a little bit of step development and training. I do an activity when I do training, and for the first 5 minutes, it's just on listening skills, because as adults, we're horrible at that. sometimes, we've just got to teach people, okay, I need you to be quiet for this amount of time, and I do this activity with all of them, and they have to rotate. And we don't listen anymore. We want to interrupt. We want to interject. We don't want to let people get out what is bothering them or why they can't do something. So sometimes skills need to be taught, reinforced, gathering data, and developing a plan together that's going to benefit everybody. Communication is important. Where I am right now, one of the things that we do is we send out a monthly newsletter, and every teacher is required to do a page, and including myself, because we want our parents to know. We want to know. We want them to know what's going on, what they can expect to see, how they can assist at home. One of the things that I'm doing is once a month or twice a month a parent engagement, because you can talk all of this to your faculty and staff, but sometimes you just need to have those conversations with parents and work with them through different processes and give them skills. This is how you can help your child at home. This is where you can go to get information. I mean, the great thing is you guys are 15 minutes away from a university. We all have public libraries. There are resources there, but have we ever taken the time? Do we have our parent resource centers so parents can come in and fill and learn how to do job applications? Are we teaching those skills to the students? There's so many different avenues to pursue, but you have to have that plan in place. I think it's important. It builds longevity. It builds communication. And I think when everybody has a process in place and we're respectful about listening and taking information in, I know I love to talk a lot, and I have had to work really hard at sitting back and listening. I've always, you can't tell now, but I grew up in a home where my mom always spoke to me in Spanish. She was from New Mexico, and I answered in English. So it's funny when someone talks to me and I could turn around and say, no, I understand, but I say something back because they didn't see that coming with this oaky accent. And it's introducing to other cultures, developing efficacy skills. There's just so much that we can develop. Second language learners, when you work in inner city school districts in Dallas, we had 35 different languages. It wasn't just Spanish, even though Hispanic was the largest population. We had people from Asia, we had people that spoke Lao, and we had 36 different languages that we had to provide information. If we were going to give them a test and they were on an IEP, we had to give it to them in their native language so that they had that opportunity to be successful. And I think we forget about that. So it's looking at them. I'm a special ed teacher, so I'm all about those individual plans of making sure that every student, it's a level playing field and at their level. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spaniel. Dr. Gutierrez, I'll read the question again. What would be your plan for improving the communication between various departments within the district office to better implement the policies and procedures for processes that schools, parents, and students are often faced with? You have 5 minutes.
So I think sometimes district office forgets the needs of schools. And I had this happen here in Colorado, and like I told you, I spend a lot of time in schools. I visit schools regularly, and I have informal visits and I have formal visits. So one of the things that I did when my principal started saying we have too many demands from different departments, and sometimes it's the exact same demand from multiple departments. Do you not speak to each other? And I thought, okay, this is an issue. And so I had no problem getting to know my fellow cabinet members and their direct reports and asking people for things. Because if you don't ask, the answer is no. But if you ask, sometimes you might say yes. And so what I ended up doing was having my secretary schedule every fellow cabinet member to visit schools with me. And it was very eye-opening to them to sit uninterrupted with the principal for an hour and to realize how we at the district office were not serving schools. And then when I had my one-on-one with the superintendent, he actually was the one that developed that Google template. I'm going to give him credit because I didn't develop it. I told him about that. And he said, well, how did those go? I said, oh boy, you'd be surprised. And he loved it. He loved the idea. And when we had our next cabinet meeting, he wanted to know about that. He wanted to know from cabinet what the experience was. And then he wanted to know about the redundancy. And it set up a whole project for him about redundancy and why we weren't talking to each other and why there were silos. And so you need to remove those silos. You know, we get so busy, but why can't the operations guy come over, across the hall or across the building and talk to the curriculum people? The operations guy needs to know how his operations team supports the curriculum team. And the curriculum team should go over and talk to nutrition services. So I really do think removing those silos is one way to do it. And taking a central office administrator and saying, I want you to go out on school visits with me. And I want you to hear from building leaders. And when was the last time that you were in a building? Not in a formal capacity, but just to listen. Because district office is there to serve the schools. We need to be able to hear them. And it shouldn't always be us dictating. Principals have really good ideas because they're the ones that are in the buildings all day long. Teachers have really good ideas because they're the ones that are in the classroom all day long. And so having that two-way communication is important. One of your questions during the interview was about building a high school. And yes, you need the architects and the building people, but you also need the teachers because where your architect was planning on hanging the whiteboard may be completely the wrong place from a teacher perspective. So did you get teacher input? Those are the kinds of things that you need to do. You need to facilitate that two-way communication. You need to break down those barriers, and you need to break down those silos and help people understand that the work that I do in my office does have an impact on the people that are on the other side of the building or that are across the hall that I only ever say good morning to or hey, but I need to have a deeper conversation with them.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. Okay, that moves us to question number 10, our final question. And each of you will have minutes. Continuing with our rotation, Dr. Gutierrez, you'll go first. Question number 10. What do you identify as the greatest strengths of Cobre School District, and where do you see the most opportunity for growth?
Well, I think one big strength is that you are a small community, and so what I've seen so far in this process is that there's a lot of involvement. People are invested in who you're going to hire next, right? I think the fact that you, Vijay, have been on the board for quite a while, that's historical knowledge. You have sat through a lot of board meetings, public and executive sessions, and so you have a lot of history there. Everybody that I've interacted with, Ms. Ramirez, the board secretary, you could tell people are invested in the district. They're excited to have a new leader. They're excited to have some change. all of that is very positive. I have not had a negative interaction with anybody as of yet. Some of the challenges, it's a small rural district, so the finances are not going to be what they are in a larger district. The larger districts right now are struggling tremendously financially as well. The academic achievement could be better, and that is across the state of New Mexico. Unfortunately, New Mexico does not rank very high, but that could be changed if we put in some goals and start working towards them. As I told you, I would want to have longevity myself. You need a superintendent that's going to have longevity, because in the longevity of your superintendent is where the achievement will come. If you don't have longevity in your superintendent, every time you turn over the superintendency, you're starting over, and that delays the progress. So that's an opportunity. With the sister city right next door, Silver City, that you can build partnerships with some of the resources that they have. There's also Deming. Deming's a little bit further down the road. But Southern New Mexico has so much to offer. And that's why I keep returning to the area. Those are the things that I've seen so far in this process. And there may be more that I haven't yet discovered, but that's what I've seen so far.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. Dr. Spaniel, I'll read the question for you. What do you identify as the greatest strengths of Cobre School District, and where do you see the most opportunity for growth? You have 5 minutes. You're muted, Dr. Spaniel.
Sorry. The fact that it is such a close-knit district, the community involvement, the people that are invested in the district, that's what I love about small districts, because you develop that family. You get to know your neighbors. You get to know the kids and watch them grow and be successful. And Cobre District has a lot to offer. If you look at staff, I think you don't have a high turnover rate with faculty and staff, and that says a lot too. You have people that have been in your district that have gone on to do great things. I like the fact that it is smaller. The data, like Dr. Gutierrez said, it's systemic. Unfortunately, tests have changed. Tests have become harder. Standards have been harder. But I think working with the staff, working with the school board to help the school close the gap, taking the time to meet with parents and community members. When you already have a strategic plan in place, to really look at that and make sure that you have that buy-in from teachers, staff, community members, and that you're developing a process to ensure success. When every student graduates, it's not always about going to college. Do you have trade programs? Do you have strong trade programs in place? Working as an interim superintendent in northern New Mexico, I love the fact that, we have a welding class, and some of our kids that graduated were already certified welders, and while they were going to school, they were going to be making so much money as a welder, but they wanted to look at attaining. How are we meeting the needs of all of our students? I know that putting plans in place, working with the community members, and continuing what the board's vision is, and getting buy-in from everybody to move the scores up. I think instructional skills need to be looked at, and making sure that our teachers have those skills and meeting with them. What do you need? What do you need to be successful? Meeting with students. What do you want to see? Taking the time to understand, being visible, aligning, and putting plans in place to see that succession. I can sit here and go on about different things, but until you're in there and gather information, that's where you develop that process. Taking the time to listen, taking the time to develop plans, working with the community. Nobody can come in and just say, no, we're going to do this. You have to have buy-in from everyone to make sure that the district is successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spaniel. So I'd like to thank our parents, our staff, and community for those amazing and insightful questions. Also, thank you to our finalists for your thoughtful answers. We will close with closing statements. So each finalist will have 5 minutes to make a closing statement. Dr. Spaniel will give her closing statement. You have 5 minutes. Please begin.
I want to thank everybody for allowing me. I'm humbled to be a part of this process. I know that sometimes I might stall, but here's what I do bring to the table. I have been in leadership positions for over 30 years. I have documented proof of growth. I'm here to make sure that when I take a position, I'm all in. I want to move the district forward. I want to be that person that you can come in and have those hard conversations with to develop the plan and work in the best interest of the students and the families and the staff of Cobre District. Throughout my life and growing up with a mother and who was a teacher and was a Spanish teacher and was physically handicapped, compassion was important to me. Knowing that everybody has a strength, you might not see it right away, but taking that time to listen, to work, and to develop, those strengths. One of the biggest things that is important to me is leading by example. You can't be quick to judgment. You have to listen, and I feel that I am a good listener. I feel that I have had several opportunities that have made me a good leader and helped me develop a skill set. I think I'm tired after 10 questions, and it's been a long meeting, so sorry if I keep being repetitive. But I'm honored to be here, and it would be an honor to help the Cobre School District be the best district it can be. If given the opportunity, I am that person. Even now, I show up to work early. I seem to leave late, but that's what's expected of a superintendent, to be visible, to be out in the community, to become a part of the community, and to work in the best interest of everybody, and to have that open door policy that everybody knows, hey, I'm here, but together we're going to develop this process, and we're going to work in the best interest of the students and the staff and help this district rise. And know that I don't know everything, and that I do ask questions, and I'm okay with that. And hopefully, if selected, I look forward to making an impact in the Cobre District. And I just want to say thank you. It's been an honor to make it this far, and I do appreciate your openness, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spaniel. Dr. Guterres will give her closing statement. Dr. Guterres, you have 5 minutes. Please begin.
You don't realize how long 5 minutes is until you get 5 minutes. And I will start out by clarifying something that's been driving me crazy. It probably isn't driving anyone else but me crazy. I could not change my name on my little screen to save my life. I tried everything, but that is my email handle, and I've had that email handle since I was working on my master's degree. So it's bilingual master teacher, and that's what it is. I always have to spell it out, and I refuse to get rid of that handle because that's who I am. That's what I started this journey as way back when. I won't say when, so I don't think myself. But that's what it is. So when you publish this video online, for anybody who's like, do what? It's bilingual master teacher. Dedicated my entire adulthood to children and making things better for children, especially children who need as many barriers removed as possible. You know, I was at work today, I was a nervous wreck. I was like, I need to get home, I need to make sure I leave on time, I need to be ready for this. And I had a couple of my kiddos that I'm mentoring show up just to cheer me on. And that was everything that I needed. For them to show up and to hug me. And I said to my favorite, but don't tell anybody she's my favorite and don't put out the ring. The rest of them are going to be like, what? But I told her I'm really stressed, I'm really worried. And she said, why? You're fabulous. And she gave me one of her hugs. She gives the best hug when I hugged her. And I thought, this is what I do, what I do. She wants to be a vet. She's going to be a fabulous vet. And if I have an animal, when she becomes a vet, she will be my vet. And that's what I am and who I am. 100% unapologetically student-centered. I want to make a difference, but as long as I possibly can in the lives of my kids. I want to remove barriers, unnecessary barriers for our kids. I want to make sure that they're ready, like I said, to tackle adulthood. Because adulthood is tough. It's really, really tough. So we need to prepare them with the basics, reading, writing, and math, but also with those critical skills. I will tell you, I'm a reality TV junkie. I watch reality TV and I look at some of those people and I think, how did you end up on TV? And why are you doing what you're doing on national TV? I want to prevent kids from ending up in some of those situations because they're prepared and they have critical thinking skills, but they're not going to make a fool of themselves on national television. Instead, they're going to be out changing the world, making discoveries, and being outstanding global citizens. And I just bring that in my heart, because that's what was planted there by my parents, and that's what I have to give to the Cobre Consolidated School District, to the world. That is my mission in this lifetime. That is my journey, to just make sure that we're doing right by the next generation. So I do thank you. It is humbling. It is a lot to get to be sitting in front of you, but it's also a growth opportunity. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you to both of you. This concludes my role as MC for the finalist candidate forum. It has been an honor and a privilege. I will now turn it over back to our board president, Mr. Hector Carrillo.
Thank you, Ms. Piguet. We'll move on to number 4, board president closing remarks. So before we conclude, I want to extend our sincere appreciation to our superintendent finalists, Dr. Carla Spaniel and Dr. Berenice Gutierrez, for their time, preparation, and thoughtful engagement throughout this process. We also want to thank our community members and audience for your interest and participation. Your involvement is an important part of our decision. I'd like to recognize and thank, of course, our MC, our Vice President, Ms. Gabby Begay. Thank thank you for stepping up and and guiding us through this evening's program, as well as the staff who worked diligently behind the scenes to make this possible. So in particular, we want to extend our gratitude to our legal attorney that has helped us throughout this whole entire step. I'm not sure if she wants us to mention her name, but she knows who she is, and we just didn't do this process just out of a hat. She walked us through it. Without her, we could not have done this process, and I want to thank her so much for it. Along with our Human Resource Coordinator, Ms. Norma Ramirez. She walked her through this. Norma did extensive amount of work to help us get to where we are. And of course, our Board Secretary, Ms. Charlene Fletcher. Thank you for the dedication and support throughout this process as well. Can't forget our IT. I know that Mr. Tuan was here, and of course, our Caitlin Church. Thank you very much for that. So thank you all for your time and commitment. And as we continue this important work, our next steps from here is going to be our final interviews on April 16th at 4:30 p.m. That's going to be next Thursday, and we will continue to work hard on our decision. So, thank you. Next is number 5, adjournment.
Mr. President, I move that we adjourn.
And a second, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.